All right, Trevor, hello. How are you doing? And I'm sorry that you didn't get to I don't know if you even had a chance to try the video that I had already created before, but for some reason it wasn't working because dumb YouTube said it was too long. So I had to redo it. So this is the redo, and I'm just going to go basically over it. All of this stuff's already done, so I'm just going to kind of go over it and let you know, let you see from my perspective what I saw. So first of all. Everything looks good here except your last name is missing. So your last name should be here as well as here. This is correctly done though. That's great. Also, you got some excess spacing here. So the only easy way to fix that is just to hit delete or backspace a couple times, and that will take care of that. Here, you should actually put in your title. So make sure you create a good title for your final project or for this part one for the final project. Okay, so now topic is clear. Obviously, it's about stress. So you did a good job of clarifying what your topic was. The genre, however, wasn't quite so clear because you say she discusses health risks, um, but you go into a little bit more information about than you really needed to in the introduction, just a little bit longer than it needed to be. You probably could have left this quote out, as a matter of fact. And you could, or you could have just simply said that in the article, take a break. She discusses health risks and some of the different ways to manage it, right? And you could have just simplified that by not trying to like use it straight from her article to make that a little bit shorter. And you could have left out these signs. You could have left that for the body paragraph, right? So all this quoted stuff you could have left out and saved that for the body paragraphs. That's where I expect to see the quotes anyway, for the most part anyway. So even though in the article she states lots of good information on stress, she doesn't give enough information for people of a younger age group. You got some writing issues here. This is a run-on sentence right here. So there's some writing issues. You may want to it's really important to read your work out loud to yourself to catch those kinds of errors, or have somebody read it out loud to you so you can hear the errors like you probably just heard in my case. So make sure you read your work out loud as you're revising and editing it. Okay. Um, but so you do include the negative about the article, which is great. You talk about that. That's something a lot of students don't get. So you did a great job with that. Um, you don't have a solid thesis statement though, and some of these things that I'm saying that you need to fix and that aren't so great are really, I think, is just because you didn't follow the exemplar closely enough. So make sure you have that exemplar out and you let it show you how to do this stuff. Let it show you how in the exemplar it starts by saying something like Rosmanier argues. That's where the thesis statement starts in the exemplar. So look at the exemplar's introduction, see how it works, and then kind of gauge it or you let it guide you as to how to fix yours. Okay. And you want to end up with a good solid thesis statement like they have. Now, like I said, the exemplar, the thesis statement starts with Rosmanier argues such and such, right? You want to kind of it'll let that be a guide for you. All right. Then your body paragraphs. Now the body paragraphs, back to the genre. I'm not really seeing much in the way of genre because you don't really come out anywhere like in the example. Um, in the exemplar, he says Rosmanier argues. That verb argues tells me what the genre is in the opinion of that exemplar writer. It means that he believes that it is persuasive or an argument paper, right? So that's what you would do. That would help clarify what your genre is if you use verbs like that. All right. Your purpose is pretty clear. It's easy to tell that your purpose is to tell people about the problem. However, your audience is not quite so clear because it seems like she specifically talks about seniors, but you should talk about a specific group of your own. You should have changed. Remember back in week 3, you should have come up with your own audience that you wanted to write to. And I may have even gave you feedback on week 4 or week 3 about your audience not being specific enough. You need to come up with a specific audience that you're writing to. And that audience, since her audience was already seniors, you don't want it to be seniors again. You might just say that your audience is maybe middle-aged adults with children or whatever, right? So just think of something more specific and different from what she already wrote to, right? And then create that good thesis statement. Historical and cultural context is a little weak too, because it's kind of hard for me to tell exactly what your cultural context is without, of course, without knowing your specific audience. So that specific audience will enable you to show what culture it would be. So let's say, for example, instead of seniors, you choose adults with children, or adults with teenage children, like middle-aged adults with teenage children. That then you could say that the culture would be adults of teenagers, right? Parents of teenagers, and how they deal with stress and whatever because of what they do dealing with their teens, or it could be working adults who are raising a teenager, right? That could be good too. Working adults who raising and teaching while raising teenagers, or something like that. That could be another possible idea. So you want to make sure that your historical context is okay, because you talk about stress being everywhere, and that pretty much makes it seem like it's present day, right? It is everywhere. So that's kind of touched on, but your cultural context is not clear. Your core idea also could be more clear once you have that proper thesis statement that you should have here. Again, it's all about using the exemplar and letting it show you how to write that. All right, your details throughout the body paragraph, you have details, you make points and stuff. The problem is you don't really provide any evidence for those details. You don't have any source citations throughout any of your body paragraphs here. So that's a big problem, right? That's something that you got to make sure that you touch on that. You did, however, include the negative. However, you say here, but she could have gone into more detail about college-aged kids and how to manage stress. Now, if college-age kids is your audience, then you should clarify that way up here in the introduction. Somewhere up here, you should mention that your audience is, or at least allude to the fact that your audience is college-aged students, college-aged kids. Okay, so, but yeah, you got to make sure you define that at the beginning of the paper, and then that way that'll help drive the paper. All right. Your communication is clear, no major problems with your writing or anything, but your citations and attributes really aren't even existing. They don't even exist because you're not citing anything throughout the paper, which is something you really got to do. One last thing, your take a break. This is not really the total entry. So what you need to do to find the total entry is to go into the go into the article itself. In other words, go back to the database that the article is showing up in. And in the database, once you're in the database, you'll look up here to the right a little bit, and you'll see what looks like a quotation mark. And you click on that quotation mark, and it will show you a citation. And you just make sure that that's a citation you choose MLA. I think it's MLA 9th edition. It says you want to choose MLA, so that it gives you the full thing, because this is a business journal, so it should have like a volume and edition numbers, and it should have a URL. Okay, all that stuff is missing, so you want to make sure you fix that too. Also, delete the S here because there's only one entry, so it's just work cited. All right, that's about it for this video. If you have questions or need help with anything, let me know.